Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Improve Your Workflow with Kroll Digital Signature Capture webinar. We are delighted to have you with us today, and we hope that you will enjoy and benefit from this presentation. Now, without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Scott Belfer. Please go ahead.
Welcome. Thank you. I am the Senior Product Manager for the Kroll product line here at TELUS Health. I am a licensed pharmacist, still practicing part-time in the province of Ontario. Also on the line, we have Erin Richard, who is a team member from our learning section of TELUS Health, and she's going to help and assist with our Q&A processes. So, let's continue. Alrighty. So our agenda for this evening is fairly straightforward. We've already done our introductions. We're going to talk about digital signature capture and electronic document storage. We're going to look a little bit about workflow, Prescribe it, something that you may be familiar with, FaxRx Cloud, and Offsite RX. Some of you who participated in our presentation or a webinar about a month ago may notice some common agenda items from the last webinar. We have included them here today because they still support the electronic document storage along with digital signature capture theme for today's presentation. We may not go into great detail as we did a month ago. However, please be reminded that last month's presentation is available on the telushealth.com website. So let's start with digital signature capture along with electronic document storage. So the market or the environment has changed in the last little while. In the last few years, most, if not all, of the provincial jurisdictions underwent reviews to define what constitutes a patient record. And most have come up with a definition that's basically similar to what you see on the screen right now, and that is that a record is a complete reference of all documentation related to the care of a particular patient. So not only is it just the prescription information, it's information about med reviews, dialogue, documentation. Anything related to the care of a patient now constitutes as being part of a patient record. At the same time, the jurisdictions also evaluated how long we need to store this documentation and how long it needs to be maintained and how long it needs to be retrievable. In a lot of cases, the old store for 2 years for written prescriptions and written records of verbal prescriptions moved away from the 2 years and actually went with 10 years. And it's 10 years past the last date of service. So to put that into context, if an infant comes to your pharmacy, gets their first prescription, and continues to receive services from your pharmacy, and your pharmacy is lucky enough to still be around providing service when that patient turns 90, how long do you have to store that patient's records? If you said 100 years, you're absolutely correct. 10 years past the last date of service. So it is significant. Some jurisdictions have also adopted the approach that they could store documents electronically because they also realize that storing 100 years worth of paper is probably next to impossible. Now at the same time, or in 2014, Health Canada underwent a bit of a process themselves and tried to redefine what the term written prescription means. So in their view, a written prescription is the original Rx that's written by the prescriber, and it also includes an electronically scanned copy of that original prescription. So, in addition, Health Canada also determined that if the original prescription was scanned into a secure database, there's no longer a need to actually file that original prescription, written prescription. So if it's scanned in, you can actually shred it and no longer file it, as your electronic image now serves as the original prescription and meets all the federal requirements. Now, electronic document storage in Kroll. Kroll provides two options. Print and scan was the focus of last month's webinar. This is where you print what you need, including your hard copy, medication, labels, as such. You put pen to paper, you document and you sign whatever you need, and then using 2D barcode technology, you scan the documents back into the system, and then once they're successfully scanned, you can shred them. The second approach is the focus of today's webinar, and that's digital signature capture. In this particular model, you don't necessarily print all that paper anymore. Sure, you still print a vial label because I still need to put it on the vial. I still print a receipt and a wallet card, but I don't print a hard copy anymore. The hard copy becomes a set of electronic records that are stored within your system. You sign this prescription, quote unquote, or this hard copy by using an electronic signature pad, which will capture your signature and save it against your verification step within your workflow. There's no scanning back in, and you're not producing any extra paper, only to shred later. So as I said, this is the focus of today. So what do I need? I need at least a document scanner so I can scan paper in. I need a compatible digital signature tablet. And with the Kroll team's assistance, I need at least one on-screen verification step to link that signature to. Unfortunately, workflow setup, such as what's being suggested here, store-level resources don't have access to. However, Kroll does have an entire team who's dedicated to working with customers like yourself who want to implement an electronic document storage with signature capture process, along with any other workflow-related enhancements that they're looking for. This approach that we're describing today is compatible with both laser label and thermal label environments. Now, part of electronic document storage is capturing that prescription image. We already discussed the fact that Health Canada will allow us to store it and then shred it, but how do I actually go about doing that? So we do have two approaches. One is up front, which we typically recommend, or you can do it at the end of the day. So to capture the image up front, you're going to use what's called the F11 drop-off screen, where when accessed, you're going to select your patient and then use your document scanner to immediately capture the image of the original prescription that's presented to you. The image is then used as a reference and for all of your verification processes and purposes within your workflow and is shown on screen. So you no longer need to have a piece of paper flow from workstation to workstation to workstation. It's all done electronically within your system. And of course, it can be shredded once it's scanned in at the drop-off screen. So to access the drop-off screen, you start from the start screen, click F11 drop-off, which then displays this screen. First thing I do is I enter in my patient information in the patient search field. All patients that meet the search criteria will display, and I select the appropriate one. In this case, it's Heather Mills. I go back to my drop-off screen, and you'll notice that the demographic information has now been populated in the upper part of the screen. The next step is to actually scan in the original written prescription. In our example here, we have buttons that say import script image from file or select an existing image. If I had a document scanner linked to this particular workstation, the highlighted button would actually say scan script image. So I would select that. Actually, first, I would place my original prescription in my document scanner hopper, click the button, and it will scan the original prescription and place it on the left-hand side of my screen. For further information actually on how the rest of the process works with your drop-off, I encourage you to take a look at the user guide that we have on the Kroll website, because there are a number of different options that I could do here. I could start adding information onto the right-hand side by adding in data, or if I have a lineup in front of me, all I need to do is click Add, which is at the lower right-hand side. That creates a record, and then I would click Fill Later. What happens in the system is a prescription record with the image is created and then move to the next step in my workflow so that I can now deal with the next person in line. The end of day approach, a little less complex, but still effective. So you would process your prescriptions the same way you normally would today, using the F12 screen, and then you would generate your full label set. Your label set needs to have what's called a script image barcode label that is generated and placed on the 5th position of your auxiliary labels and can be configured by going to File, Configuration, Store, Labels, Barcodes. What you see in the green boxes is an example of one of these labels, one of these barcodes. It is unique to the prescription that you've just printed, and the intent is to place one of these labels onto your original prescription for each item that's on the written. So in this example, we have 2 distinct prescription items, so I should have 2 unique barcodes. If I had 5 items, obviously, I would have 5 barcodes. You would continue to process your prescription and use your prescription as you do today, having it flow from station to station, and use it as your reference. At the end of the process, or at the end of the, once you've signed it off, you drop that paper prescription into a bin and set it aside. At the end of the day, you can bulk scan all the paper prescriptions back in using our document scan utility. The system will pick up the necessary information for each of those barcodes on the original RX and will save that image against each of the prescription records. Once again, when you're done and you've successfully scanned it in, you're in a position to shred those pieces of paper. So now this is where we're coming to the focus of today, implementing digital signature capture. So what do I need to do? So digital signature capture does require at least one on-screen verification step in order to link the signature to the prescription record. In our particular example, our clinical verification step, which is highlighted below on the start screen, is that workflow step where I'm going to prompt for a signature. So when the prescription reaches the verification step in this particular workflow, it is displayed on screen, as you see below. Once I evaluate it, the system will then prompt me to sign the prescription. I hit the Approve button. I have a signature tablet screen display on screen, and my tablet itself that should be on the counter beside me will become activated. I then actually sign the prescription using my regular signature. Now, Kroll does not compare the signature that's entered here to anything that's stored in the database. However, we do store all the necessary information that a handwriting expert could possibly need in order to analyze a particular signature to determine its authenticity. Now, having said that, though, too, we do have some checks and balances in place. For example, you cannot just place an X on this tablet. If you do, the OK button located on the right lower left-hand side will not become active, and you'll not be able to save the signature against it. You cannot put just a line. Same thing will happen. The tablet must register a minimum of 120 points of directional change before it will accept a signature. Now, digital signature captures can also be used in many other workflow steps if you so desire, specifically anything that does require an on-screen verification. So in this particular example, we have a verified data entry workflow step where an individual who did not enter in the prescription checks to make sure that the data entered in the system is correct. They would compare on screen the data entered to the original prescription as reviewing the scanned image. Another step is verifying the prescription packaging. Once again, you're comparing what's in the vial to what's in the system to what was on the original prescription. Once again, looking at all on-screen data, and then being prompted to sign. And of course, we already went through the clinical verification step as our previous example. So all three of those could conceivably have a digital signature prompt forcing either the licensed technician or the pharmacist to sign. Now, whenever we talk about digital or electronic document stores, the question always comes up, what happens when I'm audited? I no longer have a piece of paper to show my auditor. So no worries, we do have a few options available to you. One thing you need to remember is that all digital signatures are encrypted and stored in the database for retrieval upon need, or depending upon the need. So in the event of an audit or in the event of a college inspection. To view the signature on screen, you first just recall the prescription in modify mode, such as we have here. You would then click on the View Workflow Detail button located in the lower right-hand side on the navigation bar. The Workflow Detail screen will display with the first tab active. That is the Workflow tab. What this screen shows you is every workflow step within your system that this prescription went through, the status of that prescription, whether it was completed or there was an issue, the date the step was completed, the time of day that it was completed, the initials of the individual logged into the terminal where that workflow action was completed, and finally any auto-generated or manually generated comments. Workflow steps that have digital signatures attached to them are highlighted by the hashtag sign. So if I wish to want to see the signature associated with that line item, I would just double click on it, which displays the RX Workflow Action Detail screen. There's a note here saying that the action does have electronic signature, and all I need to do is click the View Signature button, and the signature that's saved against that workflow action is now displayed on screen for me to view. The second option, which is probably more widespreadly used, is the electronic hard copy report. This is a report that you can generate for a specific prescription, for a range of prescriptions from a particular schedule. So for example, if your college inspector comes in and wishes to take a look at a sample of your controlled or narcotic, you can generate this report specifically for controlled, narcotic, and targeted prescriptions. Prescriptions processed to a specific payer. So in the event that, say, ESI or Sure comes into audit, you can generate this report specific to the payers only. On the screen is an example of that report. On the left-hand side is a rendering of the printed hard copy as if we did print it. So in electronic signature capture mode, this is just an inferred, or like I said, if we had printed it. If you were in print and scan mode, this would actually be the scanned image of the printed hard copy that you had generated and then shredded. On the right-hand side is your scanned image of the original prescription. On the bottom part, you have all the workflow actions that were completed for this prescription. And then you have the image of the signatures that were linked to each of the respective workflow actions. Digital signature capture can also be utilized for other things other than processing prescriptions. You can actually assign a digital signature to a DUR review or override if you wish. You can sign an electronic version of a med review form as well as the immunization forms. You can sign off on a patient counseling session. And you can even obtain a patient signature at pickup if you've got it configured. So we're going to take a look at how digital signature capture will work on your pickup module. So from the start screen, you can see that you've got prescriptions waiting in your pickup by taking a look at the dashboard. At your pickup area of your pharmacy, you'll make sure the terminal has F10 pickup displayed. Once the patient comes up, you key enter in some information in the universal search screen to try and bring up the patient record. All patients who have at least one prescription within your workflow that meet your search criteria will display. you have enough information in the event you've got multiple line items to ask the patient standing in front of you some open-ended questions to determine whether or not you are dealing with the correct patient. So things like, what is your address? What is your phone number? Once you've established that you've got the correct patient, you select it, and what will display is a list of all the prescriptions that are currently within your workflow for that particular patient. The functionality will also give you some extra information. So in this particular case, the amoxicillin is refrigerated, and that the lorazepam and the Lenaltech number 2, the pharmacist wishes to counsel the patient as they're probably new. You will also be able to see where in the workflow the particular prescriptions are. In this case, all 3 of them are in waiting for pickup. However, if one of them was still with pharmacist verification, the technician or the clerk or the pharmacy assistant who's at your pickup can inform the patient, oh, you know, Ms. Mills, a couple of them are ready for you already, but there's still one ready and it's still not ready, and it's with the pharmacist for review. So again, the individual at your pickup isn't necessarily interrupting your workflow by coming over and looking for where that prescription is. They know exactly where it is. The screen also displays on a per prescription basis what the patient owes, as well as the grand total at the top. Once I'm happy and once the patient has indicated they're picking up all 3 prescriptions, you just click the Pick Up 3 Items button. This patient also has a pending medication review record, so again, the clerk or the assistant or the technician at your pickup can inform the patient accordingly and ensure that the pharmacist has the opportunity to speak with them. At this point, we're now being prompted to record who is going to pick up this prescription. The screen will always default to the patient, but we have 2 other options open to us. One, we could put the name of the agent that's standing in front of you in the search screen, especially if you know that they have a record in your system. If they do, you search, you select, and then their names will be associated with the pickup component of the prescription. The second option is Other, and this is where the agent who is presenting themselves to pick up the prescription is not in your system at all. If you select them, you can, if you've got a barcode scanner at your pickup, scan the barcode on the back of, say, a driver's license or a health card number, and the system will automatically pull the data from the barcode and populate the appropriate fields in our pickup screen. So the screen that we have in front of us right now is when we select the patient. So if we had selected Other, all those fields would be automatically populated as long as the information is embedded in the barcode, as well as the photo ID number, the type, and the province where it came from will automatically be populated as well. In this particular case, when it is an agent and you've used the Other option, the only thing that you do need to do to complete it is define the relationship between the agent and the patient, whether they're father, son, that sort of thing. Once we've confirmed, we click the Confirm button, and we're now presented with a screen where we're going to confirm that we're getting the right prescriptions. So you go to the drawer at this point, you know exactly what you're getting and where you're getting it. You scan the barcode on the outside of the bag. If you're successful, you can continue. If you're not successful and you've selected the wrong prescription, you will be notified that this is the wrong prescription for the patient. So we continue with all the prescriptions. Once we've selected all the right ones, you will now notice that it says Confirmed on the right-hand side. We then select the Confirm button, and this is where we're prompted to hand the signature pad to our patient. We hand it to them, they then sign, and the same rules apply as we had indicated when a pharmacist is signing. They need to actually put their real signature. Inform them to click OK, and then they're prompted to hand it back to you. You've now completed the pickup, associating a signature along with documenting who picked it up, and you can now deal with the next person in line at your pickup. Everything that we have just displayed is configurable and is not necessarily mandatory. However, in Ontario, if you elect to use our pickup module, the documentation of the person picking up the prescription is mandatory for narcotic control and targeted as part of the ONNMS system. We do have the capability of scanning certain reports back into the system that unfortunately can't be put into an electronic format. Use 2D barcode technology, and 2 reports that you see on your screen are examples of this technology and this approach. On the left-hand side is the hard copy report. Once the 2D barcode that you notice on the lower right-hand corner is activated, this report will page break by patient. You sign the prescription where you're required to, or this report where you're required to, and once complete, you use the document scan utility and scan this page in. This image will then be saved against every prescription as noted on that particular page. The compliance checklist is another example. The 2D barcode has actually just been introduced in our latest service for this particular report. And once again, once you've completed it and scan it back in, the image of that report will be saved against every prescription noted on the report. So what are the next steps? So if you're interested in implementing or enhancing your electronic document scanning or digital capture process, contact our sales team who will work with our workflow team to help you undergo a workflow evaluation, and then talk about what type of peripheral equipment you may or may not need in order to support your specific requirements. So our sales team can be reached at the email address noted at the bottom of your screen or at the 1-800 number that's noted beside it. Okay, let's now spend a few minutes talking about a new service called Prescribe. What exactly is Prescribe and what does it offer? It's a service that's owned and operated by Canada Health Infoway. It's a national e-prescribing service. It connects prescribers to their existing systems called EMRs, or electronic medical records, and community pharmacists through their existing pharmacy practice management systems, or PMSs. The services it offers are, of course, a secure electronic transmission of all prescriptions from a physician to the patient's pharmacy of choice. So we don't have any more paper to deal with, and because it's electronic, data is automatically pulled from the electronic prescription into your Kroll system on the F12 screen. So minimal data transcribing. So again, reducing the chances of a data transcription error. We can send electronic renewals through the system. So no more faxing, no more phone calls. There's a clinical communication component where you, through your system, can communicate to the physician through their system and have the opportunity to ask questions about a particular patient or a particular prescription. Once again, no more waiting on hold to ask the prescriber the question or to confirm a prescription or deal with that receptionist. Physicians will be provided with dispense notifications, so they will have an idea of when the patient actually has picked up that prescription. And finally, the physician or the prescriber does have the capability of canceling a prescription and sending that message to you electronically. Now, who's Canada Health Infoway? So for those of you who don't know, it's an independent, neutral, and not-for-profit organization that is actually an offshoot of Health Canada. They work with partners to accelerate the development, adoption, and effective use of digital health in Canada. So they're an enabler for digital health across our country. In 2016-2017, they received a multi-year funding commitment from Health Canada to create, operate, and maintain a financially self-sustaining multi-jurisdictional e-prescribing service, which we now know as Prescribe. Prescribe, or Health Infoway, has already secured agreements with 9 provinces and 1 territory to implement the service in those jurisdictions. And it's actually currently live in 3, Alberta, New Brunswick, and Ontario. And as of the drafting of this, or the delivery of this presentation, there's actually more than 202 Kroll pharmacies live on Prescribe in these 3 provinces. It's closer now to 250. From a Kroll perspective, it's quite simple. All I need to do is I need to ensure that I've got the to-do origin column activated in my to-do, or my data input queue. That will enable me to determine where the prescription is coming from. So the example that's highlighted on your screen notice on the left-hand side the term Prescribe It. So that indicates to the user that this was a Prescribe It prescription coming in from the prescriber from their computer system. Now, to act on this or to process it, you would highlight it and then hit F to call it up. And what happens is you now get a split screen. On the left-hand side is the screen interpretation of the electronic prescription message from the physician's office system. You'll notice that we still color code so that it matches up. Yellow for patient, green for drug, pink for prescriber, gray for the other information as well. You'll notice all the data has actually been automatically entered onto your F12 screen from the message, except for the SIG. That was purposely done because I think, as we all know as pharmacists, sometimes physicians don't document the directions in patient-friendly language. So we have the option to kind of massage it a little bit without breaking any rules to ensure that the patient understands the directions better. So the same concept applies in the electronic world. If I'm comfortable with what the doctor has written in the message, all I need to do is click the Use this SIG code text in the RX, and what you see in the green box will automatically translate into your SIG field in Kroll. If you do not wish to use it, you just manually key enter in what you feel is the more appropriate SIG, make it better understandable by the patient. And finally, you get the quantity as well as the number of refills. How do I view the order? There's going to be times when in my verification process or after the fact I look at what the electronic prescription is. So you bring the prescription up in modify mode. Once again, from the main menu, you can select View, then External RX Order, and then you get the first screen. On the left-hand side, once again, is the electronic prescription. On the right-hand side is your F12 screen. Another option is to generate the electronic hard copy report that we reviewed earlier. Once again, on the left-hand side, you have either the scanned image of the printed hard copy or a rendering of the hard copy if we elected to not print it. On the right-hand side is a paper rendering of what that electronic message looks like. You'll notice that there is a watermark indicating the electronic copy. And then once again, at the bottom of the report are all the workflow steps and who did it and when. If you're interested in obtaining more information about the Prescribe It service, we strongly recommend you take a look at the information presented on our website. As you can see, telushealth.com/KrollPrescribeIt, or contact us at 1-800-263-5876 to obtain a little bit more information. FaxRx Cloud. So let's talk about the fax service that Kroll provides. Our FaxRx Cloud allows you to send a fax from Kroll. You can receive and process inbound faxes. Unlike a traditional fax machine, nothing automatically prints. You have the capability of editing and deleting any fax that you do not wish to print. You can fax an outbound document if you wish. So we're going to talk about first how to send a fax doctor report. As you normally would today, you would just highlight the prescriptions that you want to send to the physician. You would select Request Renewal, and this screen will now display. You'll see that you provide a reason for the renewal. You select the appropriate fax number that it's going to be sent to, and once you're happy, you then hit the Request button. The doctor authorization report form will display, and you'll see in the lower left-hand corner you have two options. I can either print it or I can fax it. If I select fax, obviously the print button changes to fax. And I would just click it, and it'll automatically fax the report out to the physician at that selected fax number. And this is just an example of how it changes once you select the fax option. and then we close it. So if I want to process my inbound, I'm going to start from our start screen. The inbound tile will note the number of faxes that have been received. So that number that's currently highlighted in the green box will increment as each new fax is received. As I indicated earlier, you have the ability to edit or to delete faxes that you don't want to print. So in this particular case, we definitely got some spam, and I don't necessarily want to print it. So all I need to do is highlight it, then click the delete button, and then it's gone. Now I can deal with the actual fax that I want. So in this particular case, we've received the doctor fax report back with what the doctor wishes to do. One thing I need to do, I just call up the document. Our sort pages in the document screen will display. We want to make sure that the option selected is used to process the prescription. Once it's selected, I then just hit the process button, and now it disappears. Now what happens in this particular case is the system will automatically bring you into drop-off mode, which we briefly discussed earlier. But in this particular case, the drop-off screen will automatically still be populated with the patient information. It will have the image of your report on the left-hand side, and it'll have the details of the prescription, of the first prescription on the report noted on the right-hand side. You just make your modification because that particular prescription is now in copy to new mode. Make your changes, click accept, and then the second prescription will display. You would continue until all the prescriptions are done, and then you finalize it, and it now goes back into your workflow, and you can continue processing the prescriptions. So in this particular case, I no longer have to print the fax doctor report. I can seamlessly process it without printing, without wasting any paper, and done all electronically. If I want to send a fax, you'd first click on the outbound fax, and then you click the new fax button on the right-hand side, as you see in the green box. You would select from your drop-down menu the individual or the place that you want to send the fax. Now, this list is actually built by yourself as you fax out. Unfortunately, we don't pull automatically from any records within Kroll that have fax numbers noted. So it's separate. So you do need to build these over time. Once you select it, you can then attach a document, and it gives you a couple of options. I can do it directly from a scanner, from a network scan, or from another file that's on my hard drive. Most people just do it from a scanner. So in this particular case, we're going to fax a bit of a letter to Ronaldson Smith. And once I'm happy, I just click send. And then it goes into the queue, waiting for the fax service to pick it up and then send it to the recipient. Once it's done, it's gone. You can still view it by selecting the appropriate option in the show field. Our final topic is about Offsite Rx. Offsite Rx is a service provided by the Kroll team. It's an automated pharmacy data backup process. Backups can be configured to occur multiple times per day, and it can be as often as every 2 hours if you wish. The pharmacy data is housed in an offsite data warehouse. The data is encrypted and is monitored. This is definitely an efficient and effective way of making sure that your data is available in the event of any catastrophic event occurring. Transmission is secure, and Offsite Rx does meet all jurisdictional rules around offsite data storage, specifically the fact that it's still housed in Canada. So the Kroll team here at TELUS, if you decide to go down the path of electronic document, electronic signature capture, we strongly recommend that you implement the Offsite Rx service as your primary backup process. It definitely ensures your data recovery in the event of a catastrophic event. So just think about what happens if a more traditional model occurs. Now, some of the traditional models include backing up your data onto a thumb drive. Now I'm dating myself when I say a tape or some other media. So what happens if you lose that? I don't have paper anymore to key enter in my data back. Or I don't take my backups off-site, and my backup server is also destroyed at the same time as the rest of my hardware. Once again, I don't have any paper backup to help key enter in my information again. So an offsite process will ensure that your data is available, and in the event of such a catastrophic situation, all it takes is a phone call, and within a couple of hours, you can have your data back into a new location and into new hardware so you can continue servicing your patients. So I would like to thank everyone who participated. I know we threw a lot at you, but hopefully you were able to walk away with a little bit more information about what we have to offer in the way of electronic document storage and electronic signature capture, as well as some of our other topics. And we hope you enjoyed it. Thank you again.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the Improve Your Workflow with Kroll Digital Signature Capture webinar. Thank you for your participation, and have a good day.